Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible stories in all of biology. It's a journey every single one of us has taken, but none of us remember. It all happens in the first few moments of life. And believe me, it is way more complex and way more dangerous than you could ever imagine.
So just for a second, think about it. What's the most dangerous journey you've ever been on? A sketchy hike? A flight through a crazy storm? Whatever it is you're thinking of, I guarantee you it's got nothing on a trip you've already made.
That's right. The journey from the inside world to the outside world, from the womb to your first breath, is without a doubt the most perilous voyage any of us will ever take. It's a total biological systems overhaul that has to happen perfectly, and it has to happen in an instant. So let's get into what this great transition is all about. This first step is this massive biological switcheroo, where literally everything that kept a baby alive in the womb has to change, and it has to change right now.
Okay, so before birth, think of a baby's plumbing system. Their lungs? They're filled with fluid and pretty much offline. They're completely bypassed because all the oxygen comes from the placenta. But the second that baby is born, that whole system has to flip. The lungs have to go from being a non-factor to being the absolute star of the show.
So how does this even happen? Well, the body literally flips a series of switches. See, there are three special shortcuts in a baby's circulation system, these things called shunts, and they have to slam shut. First, the ductus venosus closes, which reroutes blood to the liver so it can start its job. Then, the foraminal valley, a little flap in the heart, snaps shut, separating the heart's chambers. And finally, the ductus arteriosus closes, which forces all that blood to go to the lungs to grab oxygen for the very first time. It is a complete, instantaneous rewiring of the entire body. No room for error. You know that first cry? It's not just for dramatic effect. It's a powerful, critical process to clear out all the fluid that's been filling up the lungs for 9 months. But what keeps those tiny, brand-new air sacs from just collapsing back on themselves? It's this amazing substance called surfactant. It acts like a coating that keeps everything open and ready for the next breath. And once they start breathing, boy, do they breathe. A newborn takes between 30 and 60 breaths a minute. Just to put that in perspective, a resting adult were taking maybe 12 to 20 breaths. It just goes to show how incredibly hard their little bodies are working to adjust to this brand new world. All right, so the baby's made it through that massive transition. The journey is far from over, though. These first few days are packed with all these temporary and totally normal little adjustments as they get used to life on the outside. One of the first things you might see is something called physiological jaundice. Now, this sounds scary, but it's usually not a sign of sickness at all. It's just a normal part of the process. A newborn has a ton of extra red blood cells from their time in the womb, and their liver is brand new on the job, still figuring out how to process all the waste. The result? A temporary little yellowing of the skin. And you can see here, it follows a really predictable path. It doesn't even show up for about a day, then it'll peak around day 3 to 5, and then it just fades away on its own over the next week or two as that little liver gets better and better at its job. A newborn's skin tells a story too. They might be covered in this waxy, kind of cheesy stuff called vernix, which was their own personal moisturizer in the womb. They might have super fine, downy hair called lanugo, or tiny little white spots called milia. Even a splotchy red rash is totally normal. They're just signs of a body getting used to the dry, open air. Now, this might surprise you, but it is completely normal for a baby to lose a little bit of weight right after being born. A drop of about 5 to 10% is a standard adjustment. Their metabolism is just firing up, and they're getting the hang of feeding. Don't worry, they start packing on the pounds again very quickly. But what happens when this whole journey kicks off too soon? For babies who are born prematurely, that transition is so much harder. Their systems just aren't quite ready for the outside world, and their path is going to look very, very different. So prematurity gets broken down into different categories based on just how early a baby arrives. You've got late preterm, which is just a few weeks early, and it goes all the way down to extremely preterm. These are babies born before 28 weeks of gestation. Weight is another huge factor. Any baby under about 5.5 pounds, or 2,500 grams, is considered low birth weight. And as you can see, those categories go down to extremely low for the absolute tiniest babies, who, you can imagine, face the biggest uphill battles. Now, to track their development fairly, doctors use something called a corrected age. It's a really simple idea. You just adjust for the time they missed in the womb. So, say you have a 12-week-old baby who was born 8 weeks early. Their corrected age is actually just 4 weeks old. It gives everyone a much more realistic picture of where they should be in their development. And when you look at a premature baby, their appearance really reflects that early arrival. Their skin is so thin and delicate, and they're often still covered in a lot of that landigo and vernix. They tend to be a bit floppy because of low muscle tone, and the cartilage in their ears is still really soft. These aren't problems, they're just signs that their body needed a little more time to finish developing.
So, helping these incredibly fragile newborns not just survive, but thrive, requires a really special approach. It's called developmental care, and it's all about building a bridge to help them safely get from the womb to the world.
I mean, this quote just says it all, right? The entire goal of the NICU, the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, is to try and mimic that quiet, dark, safe environment that the baby left too soon. It's all about minimizing stress and protecting their little brain and body while they grow. And the principles of this care, they're not just about medical tech, it's a whole philosophy. It's about protecting their senses from being overwhelmed, using careful positioning to make them feel secure, getting them the best nutrition possible, and, this is so important, involving the family as a central part of the team. A huge piece of this is just protecting their still developing nervous system. That means keeping things quiet, dimming the lights, basically minimizing all the stimulation that would be totally overwhelming for a brain that just wasn't ready for it yet. And maybe the most powerful tool in the entire NICU is the family. Things like kangaroo care, where a baby is just held skin to skin on a parent's chest, it's been proven to help regulate their heart rate, improve their breathing, and promote that crucial bond. Gentle touch truly is powerful medicine. So whether a baby is born on their due date or arrives a bit early, their story is one of absolutely mind-blowing adaptation and strength. It really brings us right back to this idea of resilience that is just hardwired into our biology from the very first day.
You know, the journey of birth is just a masterclass in survival. It is a perfectly timed cascade of biological miracles that turns a part of one person into a whole new independent person. It really makes you wonder, right? If every single one of us started our lives by conquering a challenge that immense, what does that say about the potential we all carry inside us for the rest of our lives? What else are we capable of?